My name is Evelyn Hart, 27, quiet by nature, but sharper than people assume. I grew up believing that calm could protect you, that if you kept your voice even, the world might stay steady. I was wrong. You're on your own. My father said that night, setting down his fork. Not angry, just finished. The smell of butter and onions clung to the kitchen air. My mother didn't argue. She nodded once and turned back to the stove, scraping the pan like nothing had changed. I remember the clink of my water glass, the small sound of a door closing somewhere inside me. My sister Chloe asked if she could have my old desk for her new place. Our parents laughed and said, "Of course, sweetheart." A week later, they stood outside a lakefront condo, smiling for photos while she held silver keys wrapped in a red ribbon, the same color as the bow on her first car, the same color they used for every celebration that didn't include me. I didn't tell them I'd been turned down for another scholarship, or that my rent notice was taped to the door. I packed my bags quietly that night, folding my lab coat between worn jeans, tucking the photo of my mentor into a side pocket. No goodbyes. Before dawn, I caught the city bus heading north. Frost veined the windows. My reflection flickered between light poles. Behind me, our house would be waking up to coffee and small talk, already adjusting to the empty chair. Maybe independence was just another word for exile. But as the bus turned toward the freeway, the horizon opened wide and pale, and for the first time, no one told me which direction was home. Our house on Willow Lane looked like every other one in the neighborhood. White fence, trimmed hedges, seasonal wreath on the door. From the outside, we were the kind of family that waved at mailmen and hosted polite barbecues. Inside, everything revolved around one person. My mother, Janet, liked to say, "Every family needs a star." Chloe became that star before she could even tie her shoes. By 7, she was a ballet prodigy in pink satin shoes, hair pulled tight into a perfect bun. Mom's voice followed her like a stage light praise. Correction. Applause. Dad recorded every recital, zooming in on Chloe's smile, the sequins catching the spotlight. I was usually behind the curtain, holding a spare pair of slippers or tissues. In photos, I existed in the margins, half a shoulder, a hand on a chair. Mom said I wasn't photogenic. I said I didn't mind. It was easier that way. When I turned 16, Chloe got a red bow car parked in the driveway, the kind from dealership commercials. I got her old bus pass, laminated and worn soft at the edges. Mom kissed my forehead and said, "Be grateful, honey, you're the practical one." Practical meant invisible. It meant clearing dinner plates while they discussed rehearsal schedules. It meant nodding when Dad said, "Your sister's gift is once in a lifetime." I learned early that silence kept the peace. But at night, when the house quieted and the dishwasher hummed, I'd study by flashlight under the covers. Biology, chemistry, anything that made sense. Equations didn't play favorites. Experiments didn't choose a golden child. Numbers listened when people didn't. Sometimes, I'd imagine what it would feel like to stand in that warm cone of light Chloe lived in, not to perform, just to be seen. Instead, I learned how to work in the dark. Steady hands, quiet breath, building a world no one else cared to look at. By the time I turned 18, the walls of our house felt smaller, as if every conversation bounced back to the same center: Chloe's auditions, Chloe's scholarships, Chloe's almost famous future. When my acceptance letter from the University of Minnesota arrived, Mom smiled politely and said, "That's wonderful, sweetheart. You'll be close enough to visit." I waited a week before asking for help with housing. Dad was reading the paper, coffee steaming beside him. I rehearsed the words carefully, trying to sound practical, not needy. "The dorm deposit is due soon," I said. He didn't look up. "You'll manage," he muttered. "Your sister's classes cost enough." That was it. No argument. No raised voices, just a quiet verdict. I nodded, folded the brochure back into my folder, and went upstairs. That night, I sat at my desk filling out federal loan forms under the yellow light of a cheap lamp. I learned the vocabulary of survival interest, repayment, deferment, Each word sounded like a warning disguised as opportunity. In college, I discovered how far you could stretch a packet of ramen and still call it dinner. I worked in the campus library, tutored freshmen who thought science was punishment, and sold my old textbooks to afford winter gloves. Every few weeks, I mailed home a postcard or a short note updates, grades, a photo from the campus quad. No replies came back. On holidays, I told friends I couldn't afford the flight home. The truth was, no one had invited me. Mom would text group photos Chloe on stage, Chloe's birthday, Chloe's engagement. I muted the notifications but kept the phone near, just in case someone remembered I existed. 4 years passed like a long breath held underwater. When I walked across the graduation stage, the applause blurred together. No familiar faces in the crowd, no bouquet waiting. Outside, the air smelled of wet grass and rain. I bought a single cupcake from a corner cafe, lit the candle with my lab lighter, and whispered, "Well done" to no one. Then I blew it out before the wax could drip. Graduate school was supposed to be another tunnel, more deadlines, more nights fueled by coffee and self-doubt. I arrived with 2 suitcases, a second-hand laptop, and the quiet conviction that if I worked hard enough, I could outgrow loneliness. The university's microbiology lab smelled faintly of ethanol and metal, a place where precision replaced emotion. I liked it instantly. The first week, I stayed late labeling samples until the janitor flicked the lights. That's when Helena Cruz noticed me. She was in her 50s, sharp eyes behind thin frames, her posture the calm of someone who had stopped needing to prove anything. She watched as I rechecked every pipette mark, counting under my breath. "Most people follow instructions," she said softly, surprising me. "You ask why they matter." No one had ever said that to me before. Not as praise, not even as observation. I froze, unsure how to answer. She just smiled and left me to finish, her lab coat fluttering like punctuation. From then on, she became the quiet gravity around which my days revolved. Her feedback was never loud, but always exact. Precision isn't perfection, she'd remind me. It's respect for the work. Under her mentorship, the sterile hum of centrifuges became something like rhythm, the hiss of the autoclave, the steady tick of timers. It all pulsed in time with my heartbeat. Dr. Cruz taught through questions more than lectures. She'd lean over my notes and ask, "What does this result tell you about yourself?" I'd laugh nervously. But later, alone, I'd think about it. Each successful experiment felt like a small reconciliation with the universe, proof that careful hands could build something reliable, even if love had never been. Sometimes, after a long day, she'd brew instant coffee in her chipped mug and tell stories of her early years in Havana, her voice low but warm. I realized then that mentorship could feel almost like family, only steadier, without the fear of vanishing from the frame. In the lab's blue-white light, I learned that belonging didn't have to come from blood. It could start from observation, a stranger seeing something in you that had always been there, waiting to be named. It happened on a Sunday evening, sometime between reheating leftovers and proofreading my lab report. I was scrolling through social media, half distracted, when I saw it, Chloe, smiling in front of a new condo. Her hair was glossy, her nails French-tipped, and in her hand were silver keys tied with a red ribbon. Behind her, sunlight bounced off a lake view that looked almost unreal. The caption read, "So proud of our baby girl, 3 hearts." My mother's comment underneath, "Worth every sacrifice." For a long time, I just stared. The ribbon was the same shade as the one wrapped around her car when she turned 16. The same shade that seemed to mark every moment she was chosen. It wasn't jealousy that settled in me. This time, it was something quieter, cleaner, like a string snapping after being stretched too far. I didn't throw my phone or cry. I just set it face down on the counter and poured myself a glass of water. The refrigerator hummed, a sound too ordinary for the kind of ending that had just happened inside me. Later that night, I opened my laptop and found the application I'd bookmarked months earlier, Stanford's PhD program in molecular microbiology. I filled in the blanks I'd been too afraid to touch. Understatement of purpose. I wrote about persistence, about data and discipline. But what I meant was survival. When I hit submit, the clock read 2:14 a.m. Outside, the Minneapolis streets were glazed with thin ice, streetlights shimmering like ghosts. I packed before dawn, slipping my notebooks and the small framed photo of Dr. Cruz into a box. No one knew I was leaving. No one asked. By sunrise, I was on the highway, the car heater rattling, the city shrinking in the rearview mirror. The sky ahead was pale and endless, the kind of emptiness that felt almost holy. In the mirror, that image lingered Chloe, the ribbon, the lake, all of it turning smaller until it dissolved into light. I didn't know what waited in California, only that I needed to drive far enough for the red to finally fade. California didn't welcome me. It tolerated me. The air smelled of metal and heat, the kind that clings to glass buildings and ambition. At Stanford, I lived in a small studio near the medical campus, one window, one kettle, one purpose. Days blurred into the hum of incubators and fluorescent light. I wasn't chasing recognition anymore. I was building proof that I existed. By the second year, I met Mark Reynolds, a biomedical engineer with a calm voice and a habit of listening longer than he spoke. We shared lab space, late nights, and too many cups of burnt coffee, where I was all edges and silence. He was patience embodied steady hands, soft humor, the kind of presence that didn't demand space but quietly offered it. Together, we began what would become NextBiome, a research project turned startup focused on antibiotic resistance. It started as an experiment, a line of bacteria surviving against odds, and somehow grew into a mission neither of us could walk away from. We built prototypes from recycled equipment, held meetings in campus hallways, pitched investors with borrowed slides. Every small success felt enormous: the first grant, the first patent, the first time someone called me Dr. Hart without hesitation. Years slipped by like calm water over stone. I worked through birthdays and weekends, driven not by anger anymore but by precision. The more control I found in data, the less I needed from people. One morning, Mark forwarded me a link without a subject line. It opened to a Forbes article, Top 30 Scientists Under 40 Reshaping Medicine. My name was number 14. Within minutes, my phone buzzed nonstop emails from investors, classmates, strangers who suddenly remembered me. Notifications lit the screen like static. I scrolled once, then stopped when I saw it one unread message from Mom. "So proud of you. Family sacrifices finally pay off." The words pulsed on the screen like a heartbeat I didn't recognize. I stared until the screen went black, then turned off the phone completely. The lab was quiet except for the low hum of machines, the only applause I trusted. It was a Tuesday afternoon when she appeared. No call, no warning. The receptionist buzzed me in a low voice, saying there was a woman insisting she was family. By the time I looked up, my mother was already standing in the doorway of my glass-walled office, framed by the skyline of Palo Alto. "Evelyn," she said, as if it were a pleasant surprise. Her perfume reached me first: vanilla and calculation. She looked exactly as I remembered: perfect hair, pearls, confidence polished to a mirror shine. I stood slowly. "Mom." She took in the office like an appraiser: patents on the wall, framed certificates, the hum of quiet success. "So this is where all the genius happens," she said, smiling too wide. "You didn't even tell us. Imagine my surprise reading about my own daughter in Forbes." I motioned toward the chair. "Would you like to sit?" "Oh, I won't stay long." She placed her purse carefully on the desk, then pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "I just thought it was time we talked about everything I've done for you." Her voice was syrupy, practiced. She slid the paper across the desk with manicured fingers. I unfolded it: neat columns, line items typed in bold: private school tuition, meals, emotional labor, parental sacrifices. At the bottom, the total $1,000. It was even notarized. For a moment, I thought it was a cruel joke. But her eyes were steady, expectant. "It's time you repay what I gave up," she said sweetly. as if asking for a favor. My pulse slowed to something steady and cold. "You're asking me to pay you for being my mother." Her smile didn't move, but the air around her hardened. "For everything you could never repay." I set the paper down carefully, aligning its corners with the edge of my desk. Children don't owe their parents for being born. The words hung between us final, sharp. Her mask cracked. I saw the anger underneath, raw and ancient. "Then you're no longer my daughter." She stood, smoothed her jacket, and walked out. The door clicked shut, and the silence that followed filled the room like oxygen finally returning. I didn't sleep that night. The paper sat on my kitchen counter, folded neatly beside an untouched glass of wine. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her handwriting on the envelope, the same loops she used on permission slips when I was a child. Only now, each loop had a price tag. By morning, I called my attorney, a measured man named Harris Lowe who had handled Next Biome's contracts since our first grant. He read the document once, twice, then set it down. "You want to press charges," I said. "I want a boundary that can't be crossed." He leaned back, considering. A restricted living trust might work monthly disbursement, medical coverage, no access to the principal. "You can appoint an independent trustee. Do it," I said. He raised an eyebrow. Protecting her from herself, I met his gaze. Protecting me from her. The trust was formalized within a week, clinical, precise, the way emotions should have been handled long ago. The terms were clear: a fixed monthly stipend, automatic payments for health expenses, no withdrawals beyond what was necessary to survive. It wasn't generosity, it was containment. When the calls started, I answered once. Her voice trembled between affection and accusation. "You'll regret this, Evelyn. You can't erase me." Then came the voicemail's guilt, pleas, threats, the entire vocabulary of control. I saved each one, time-stamped and archived for the legal record, then blocked the number. Mark found me one evening staring at my silent phone. "You don't have to listen," he said gently. "I'm not." I told him. "I just need to see how quiet feels." Weeks passed. The messages slowed, then stopped. The noise that had filled years of my life thinned into stillness. One morning, I realized the silence wasn't empty, it was solid, like the first brick of a wall I had built for myself. It didn't feel cruel, it felt earned. 8 years slipped by like rain on glass quiet. Unstoppable. Next Biome had expanded. My name appeared on panels and research papers, and the noise of achievement filled the spaces where family used to echo. I thought I'd buried the past so deep that it could no longer find air. Then, one gray afternoon in Seattle, I saw her. I was walking back from a medical conference, half listening to the chatter of colleagues behind me, when a movement by the curb caught my eye. A woman sat hunched against a lamppost, a paper cup trembling in her hand. Her coat was thin, her hair streaked silver and uneven. I might have kept walking until she lifted her face. My mother's eyes, dim but unmistakable. For a moment, the street noise fell away. I couldn't breathe. I crossed the road slowly, the sound of my heels hollow on the pavement. She didn't recognize me until I spoke. "Mom." Her head jerked up, the paper cup tipped, coins scattering. "Evelyn." Her voice cracked on the second syllable. We sat together on the curb, two strangers bound by old fractures. I bought her coffee from a corner cart, and we talked in fragments weather. The city. Nothing that mattered but everything that did. She said she'd been sick. That pride had taken more from her than time ever could. When she refused my pity, I didn't argue. I contacted the trustee the next morning, arranged for her medical care and a modest apartment through the trust. Nothing more. A month later, an envelope arrived at my office, no return address, just my name in shaky handwriting. Inside, one line, "Thank you for the coffee." No apology, no attempt at rewriting history, just that it was enough. The ballroom shimmered with glass and light, a sea of handshakes and congratulations. The Next Biome acquisition had closed that afternoon, $80 million. Numbers so large they barely felt real. Reporters hovered near the champagne tower, asking questions about innovation, resilience, and legacy. When one of them leaned in and asked about my family, I smiled. The kind you learn after years of practice. I built this with my team. I said it was the truth that mattered most. The applause rose again when Mark took the stage to thank our partners. I clapped along, then slipped quietly toward the balcony. The night air hit like water after a long drought, cool, alive, honest, below. The city glittered, endless movement under a still sky. Mark found me leaning against the railing, shoes in hand, the echo of the crowd still pulsing faintly through the glass doors. "You okay?" he asked, handing me a glass of water instead of champagne. "I am," I said. And this time it wasn't an answer for politeness. It was a fact. Across the bay, fireworks bloomed bursts of red and gold, streaking the night with color. The red glowed deeper for a second. The same shade that had once tied a bow on my sister's car, her condo, her every celebration. Only now, it didn't sting. It shimmered and faded like smoke, leaving the sky wide open again. I raised my glass toward the horizon. To the girls who had to raise themselves, I whispered. Mark didn't say anything. He just nodded, his hand resting lightly over mine. The wind carried the sound of laughter from inside, mingling with the smell of the lake below, clean, calm, new. For the first time in my life, the silence that followed felt like home.